Live from London, it's Plank of the Week with Mike Graham.
Welcome to Plank of the Week. It's Friday night, and what a week it has been. Absolutely extraordinary. Some great plunkery, the like of which has not been seen before. So, in order to go through all of the planks that we've got this week, we had to get a specially expert panel, which is what we have today. David Bull has joined us. The good doctor is in the house. Reem Ibrahim is back. Very, very intelligent young woman. One of the few people that has been in this actual studio twice. We've then got Isabel Oakeshott, of course, talkTV's international editor, and Andre Walker, a veteran of Plank of the Week, who's been with us for a very long time, doing this for a very long time as well. So, what we have to show you is what we are fighting for today, and it is, of course, the plank, which will be handed out to the winner at the end. And we have got an incredible number of really idiotic people this week. Let's start off, David, with your first nomination.
Yeah, well, I mean, obviously this week there is only one person for me. That is Matt Hancock. I mean,
that's the end of the show.
Well, that's it. Shall I go home now? You know, the point is about this. He is so self-indulgent. He is sort of a celebrity now, sort of masquerading as a member of Parliament. I'm actually very angry about this. £84,000 he's paid by West Suffolk to represent those interests. And, of course, we're in the cost of living crisis, cost of energy crisis. He thinks it's OK to sort of wallow around in the jungle, being paid £400,000. I mean, I know I shouldn't do this, and people are always read about my surname. But, I mean, the clue's very much in the title, isn't it?
It really is.
Well, I think it is.
I think Piers Morgan last night said the man who put the cock in Hancock.
Well, I didn't really want to go that far.
I quite liked the Sun's headline today, which was a hand cockroach. Which was rather good, because there were lots of cockroaches crawling around all over him.
Well, I mean, I think the extraordinary thing is, you know, and obviously I dabble in politics, and the sadness for me is he says this will make politics more accessible. I actually think it sort of undoes all the good work that the good politicians actually try and do, which is to make Britain a better place.
I mean, Isabel, you've got a collaboration going on with Matt Hancock at the moment, a book coming out soon about his time during the pandemic. I mean, I think after watching it last night, that he might have a point. He might be right to say that he's actually reaching an audience that he might otherwise not reach.
So I think that we are all going to be quite surprised by how this plays out. Now, I may be very wrong about this, and I can 100% see why people are angry, particularly that 400 grand. I mean, it is a phenomenal amount of money for a week or however long it ends up being of gadding around and having quite a lot of fun as well as bad times. But what I would say is that I think by the end of this, people will have a slightly different view of him. I don't think the viewing public are going to get nearly as much pleasure from seeing Matt Hancock doing these trials as they thought they would, because actually he's just going to breeze through them. He's actually really kind of spirited and up for stuff. And the other thing about him is that he will not be bitchy on that show. And we've already seen the others kind of bad-mouthing behind his back. He won't do that. He'll be very, very straightforward. And, you know, he's had such a kicking before going on, all of which, by the way, he's blissfully unaware of, because he's been, and that's probably a good thing, he's been isolated there. But I think that he's started from a very low base, hasn't he?
I mean, in your experience of talking to him and working with him, is he somebody who is kind of oblivious to people's attitudes to him? Because you know how some people don't really understand that there's a lot of people that don't like them. They just assume everybody gets on with them.
And I mean, a lot of people think he's a massive plank. Totally unaware that anybody dislikes them.
Well, he used to write these pieces in the Mail on Sunday saying, you know, people have been coming up to me all week and asking me how I am. And I'm going, no, they haven't. That's rubbish. They've been coming up and swearing at you, probably. But...
Well, I mean, I think a bit of both. I mean, he does have a following amongst some people. And look, I think it's unfair. I think it's unfair that people are kind of acting as if he's responsible for the pandemic itself.
But he did make all those decisions, didn't he? He separated families.
He didn't make them on his own, though, did he?
No, but he was part of the system. And actually, it's quite interesting with Boy George, of course. And I think he actually articulated very nicely what a lot of people think, which is actually they went through hell and back with their families, the way people were discharged from hospital into care homes without being tested and all the rest of it. So for me, the juxtaposition of that and then being on a sort of fun show...
And I actually get that, you know. I mean, I was a massive lockdown sceptic. I still think that the decisions that were taken were absolutely catastrophic and that I was completely right all along, that we shouldn't have responded to the pandemic in the way that we did. the question as to whether it's right or wrong for him to be doing this. Look, I think it's quite hard to make a really strong defence of it.
Yeah.
But on the money side, I think that's a bit of a, the fact that he's getting a parliamentary wage, I'm pretty sure he's going to be paying that
Maybe
back.
does it maybe tell us more about the current parliamentary system, that if you are actually now a politician and you are in the cabinet, you sort of are a bit of a celebrity.
You are,
And one of the things I want to ask
are.
you, Reem, is that a lot of women apparently quite like Matt Hancock.
I absolutely don't. I think that seeing him topless, getting in the shower yesterday...
You loved it, didn't you?
What was he doing around?
Absolutely loved
What was he doing around at your place?
Let me tell you, Mike.
In the jungle. And I just thought it's awful. I mean, I just don't think that he really comes across as somebody that's very intelligent, as somebody that understands the impact that he's had. I get that he wasn't the entire government, but he was the health secretary.
Are you saying he doesn't come across as intelligent?
No, he doesn't. He comes across as a complete idiot.
He's really bright.
When she saw him with his top off, her little face lit up. She'd never seen anything like it. Not since Hulk Hogan, all those years ago.
But that's a really interesting point. I don't think he comes across as very bright either. But unless he's dumbing it down, is he playing a role? You know him.
No, I don't. Look, I don't think he's dumbing it down. He is really bright. Now, whether or not that intelligence is used in the right way is another question. But he is extremely bright, extraordinarily hardworking. So I do think that he will make up the time. As
I mean, he's
it
a
were.
bit geeky, isn't he? I mean, as politicians go, he's maybe interesting.
He is geeky.
But he's geeky, isn't
I mean,
he?
to watch the transformation of Matt Hancock, somebody that I've observed at Westminster for, 10 years or something, from this kind of economist, sort of slightly square economist, to sort of hard guy that's doing all these, we all know that he's also done SAS Who Dares Wins thing, very physical feats. It's quite something to
He'll be on Match of the
behold,
Day
isn't it?
soon. Get rid of Gary Lineker.
Well, you joke, but...
Can I make a point? And it's
You have to be quick, though.
It's to be deadly serious for a second. When I worked at the House of Commons, there's two elements to the job. There's partly the legislation and there's partly the redress of grievance. The reality is, if in the next couple of weeks a constituent comes forward who needs something urgently raised, that cannot be done by his staff. He can't have a PPS, he's not got a shadow, he's not got a deputy. And actually it means it's just a genuine dereliction of duty. Now, I know we're all having a bit of fun tonight, but in truth, what he's done, I think, is shameful.
Yeah, no, I think that's a very good point. A lot of people do feel like that. But let's see, I think, as Isabel said, let's play out the
And vote.
the role and just see how it
Sure, his
goes.
constituents will be.
Yeah. Isabel, you've got the next one.
So my nomination is for that snivelling, self-indulgent, spoilt so-called protester, Louise Harris. This is a woman who I want to say she's not even really a woman, is she? She's just a kind of young, I think she's a student or whatever. Anyway, she's the one that was up above the M25 on some gantry.
On behalf of Just Stop Oil.
Crying her eyes out over the so-called catastrophe that's about to befall us all, saying that she has no choice but to be there. She's not sorry at all for the disruption that she's caused. This is essential for saving the planet. And I just think these people are utterly deluded, and they are extraordinarily selfish,
And dangerous
and they
now
are,
as well.
and they're dangerous, and it is only a matter of time before there are more tragedies as a result of what they are doing. And the whole idea that they can equate themselves to the suffragettes, I find downright ridiculous.
It's insulting,
Don't
isn't it?
the French have it right? Get the water cannon. The one thing they don't want to do is wash.
Water
If you
cannon.
send a water cannon towards them, they'll absolutely run a mile. Like, oh my God!
Almost any other police authority in any European country treats them a lot more harshly. As a result, in fact, I saw a great piece of video from Italy yesterday where somebody was standing in front of a line of cars, and I'm not even sure if it was a protester, but somebody just chucked a cone at their head and they fell over.
that was great.
That was brilliant.
I love the Porsche Museum where they glued themselves to the floor, so they all just went home.
Oh yeah, they just left
turned the lights off. And the problem is, apparently one bloke had had a particularly fruity curry the night before and absolutely destroyed the place.
I mean, it's horrendous.
apparently they made but Mike, they then made a complaint to the Porsche Museum about how badly they were treated. You're protesting, you idiots.
I know. It is a remarkable state of affairs because they won't stop, it seems to me, until they are stopped. And like you say, Isabel, these people are convinced. One guy was on the other day saying that, there are people fighting each other in the streets for food. And you're going,
they're
no,
not.
there aren't.
Where?
No, there aren't. And
Oh, I don't know. I've been to KFC on a Friday night.
These people have never seen the real world, and I think that they're just incredibly snowflakey. They don't understand the real world impact of what they're doing.
No.
And actually, nothing they do is good. I mean, they're sort of asking for the stopping of licences on
really-
oil, but actually, we need to increase the supply of oil. Real people, I think, actually care more about their energy bills and heating their homes, and they care about the environment.
But Reem, I think it's almost like, and I'm not a father myself, but I see with my brothers, you know, when you get a toddler who's having a tantrum, what you don't do is indulge it.
No.
And I think that what's happened with these people is they're being taught that if you know, the only thing that matters in the world is your opinion. If you scream and shout and whatever, and bear in mind you've got a big trust fund, Tarquin, so you're going to be perfectly fine financially.
The thing I worry about
we should
is
stop
this
it.
Aileen Getty woman who seems to be funding all of this
Yeah.
stuff, and she's given about £1 million already to Just Stop Oil.
Absolutely.
And so they're actually, this is
But
their
there's a
job
real
now.
human
They're not going to
cost
stop.
this, and that's the thing that I can't get away from is that, you know, for example, people can't get to funerals, they can't get to work, they can't actually put food on the table.
James
And
Whale couldn't get to his cancer appointment. for heaven's sake.
exactly that. And so these self-entitled, and I think you used a fantastic word there to describe her, but these self-entitled people think that what they're doing is so important, it supersedes everyone else's lives, and it's simply not true. Also, the irony is, of course, by slowing down the traffic, the particulate emissions from the traffic go up, and therefore make the climate crisis
And
worse.
you said about toddlers, and from long experience, I can tell you the one saving grace of the toddler tantrum is it blows itself out after about 20 or 30 minutes maximum. The problem with these people
They don't
is that
stop.
they're there for hours and hours and hours and hours. Look, I would hose them down, absolutely. Get the water cannon out. We would not have to do this very often before that is the end of the problem.
Yeah, but if they had to go out and work like the people watching this show actually have to work, then it wouldn't. But they're all called like, I don't know.
Indigo.
Yeah, like Indigo Rumbelow was one of them, wasn't it? I mean, Indigo. I mean, look, I'm not being funny, but when I go for my local Weatherspoons, I've never met a bird called Indigo Rumbelow. That's never happened. Literally.
Are you sure? Not even in Windsor?
Yeah, that's right. Pie and a pint.
You know.
$12.99 Indigo Rumbelows there on the curry.
Do you know what I heard the other day, which is very funny? Over in Sharm el Sheikh, where they're having marvellous banquets for all the delegates and everything, the press and everybody else.
Country?
Is it? Well, they haven't heard of vegetarianism in Egypt, apparently, because even at the Climate Crisis Summit, there is no vegetarian option.
Good.
Excellent.
Any of the places where the journalists are eating, which is brilliant. Because, of course,
Right.
all the Guardian people have gone there and gone, where's the vegetarian option? There isn't one. Sorry, guys.
If I was a world leader, get rid of the vegetalist menu, and I always think vegetalists are more offensive, so call it that. Just it encourages the wrong sort of people.
Well,
so basically, you don't
listen,
want
I've
those
got nothing against
about.
people who want to be vegetarian. It's fine. Just don't keep telling me you're a vegetarian. Now, you've got the next one, Andre.
I've got Tom Watson. And
Good.
by the way,
I'm so glad you've got Tom Watson.
On the subject of food, I mean, you know, I liked him more when he was a big lad.
Yeah.
Do you know something?
He went a bit strange when he lost all that weight,
Yeah,
didn't he?
so it's all about the way that I think he polluted Parliament with his dishonesty over child sex offences and child murder. People were deeply upset and deeply worried, and people's lives were ruined.
Yes.
And for him to get a peerage, I think is disgusting.
But he was a very much an acolyte, wasn't he, of Gordon Brown? He was Labour Party MP. He was known as one of Gordon Brown's kind of enforcers, wasn't he?
Yeah, and Gordon Brown brought in this concept of just having these big bruisers who cause trouble.
Who sort of
The
come up
Damien
behind you in the
McBride type
corridors
people.
and go, I don't want you doing
And
that.
by the way, I will say one thing. I mean, when I liked Tom Watson, during the expenses scandal, lest we forget that he phoned up the Telegraph to say, please don't mention the pizza wheel.
Oh,
that he
my
expensed.
God.
Oh, yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
Now, actually, in those days, I had some time for him, the pizza wheel man.
Yes.
But actually, you know, the House of Lords has become a joke. I think it's great the way that Lord Listvane is ensuring that John Bercow doesn't get a peerage.
Yeah.
I think that's a man who's also disqualified.
Talking of temper
But,
tantrums,
I mean,
he's had a lot of them,
and I
hasn't he?
suppose, actually, I don't know whether my nomination's for Tom Watson or the House of Lords system, but either way, something's gone badly wrong.
Well, Tom Watson, I think, is a man who has got quite a lot of skeletons in his cupboard as well, in terms of some of the things that he did while he was an MP, the enforcer kind of role that he played. He had a big role in going after certain journalists, trying to make out that they had been guilty of things that they turned out they weren't guilty of, and he was relentless in pursuing those people
But he
as well.
literally, I mean, I just think...
And he ruined a lot of people's lives with some of the things
He
said.
ruined a lot of people's lives. And the truth of the matter was, he would not allow... And so what you could say is he was highlighting the issue. He wasn't. He was winding the police up to behave improperly. There are now investigations into the behaviour of the police. And I think, actually, you know, he is the person most responsible. But, of course, all that ever happens, Mike, is this. The police officer's responsible. They'll get into trouble, maybe, maybe not. This bloke gets a peerage. He gets to continue doing his work out video, which, I mean, I'm not watching.
Oh, I haven't seen
that's
that.
this-
I didn't know you was doing a workout video.
Sorry,
Tom Watson's
I've seen
workout
it.
video.
We should
Do you know what?
mention
Do you know what? I
this.
made that up. He's a personal trainer. But wouldn't it be great? Wouldn't it be great if it was true? The Tom Watson workout video. It's like that old advert for gay chat on ITV.
I haven't seen it.
1990.
Yeah, I
I'm
haven't
really
seen it.
disappointed now.
No, I know. We were all
Workout
going by.
video.
You can't just dangle that and then take it away again. I mean, that's just not right.
Maybe you can
know.
convince him to make one.
Oh, do you know what? I'm willing to withdraw him as a nomination for Blank if he makes a Tom Watson workout video. And also if he's got the piercings as well.
Yes,
in the fall.
that would be.
Tassels.
You have a very vivid imagination.
There we go, Tom. Because it'd be a bit saggy, won't it?
I don't
He's
wanna
lost all
know.
the weight.
Yeah, I think that's enough about Tom Watson's
quite
non-existent
enough.
workout
Think too
video.
much.
I can say that. But listen, coming up next, we will be nominating someone who's actually gone on strike. That's a big area, isn't it? Yes, exactly right. So welcome back to Plank of the Week. I'm Mike Graham. This is, of course, talkTV, and we are already underway. We've had Matt Hancock, Justin Wall and Tom Watson already, but yet there are more to come. Reem, let's have your first one.
Yeah, so I'm nominating the US Republicans because what should have been an absolutely fantastic landslide for them actually ended up being a big disappointment. I mean,
Very much so.
you've got inflation at 8%,
Yeah.
the economy, these sort of really key issues to American people were not dominating the conversation. Instead, the American Republicans got in their own way and decided to make things like abortion, these really small issues that actually I don't think should be at the forefront of the conversation. They let that dominate the conversation. And instead, what we ended up with now is actually Joe Biden and his Democrat Party, abysmal track record over the last few years. Actually, what we've seen now is they've done very well in the midterm. So I think it's this red wave did not materialise.
Well, I guess they haven't done as badly as they were thought to be going to do, right?
Yeah, because we sort of thought that
Well, it looks like they've lost the House of Representatives, doesn't it?
Yeah, but that's normally expected. What we've actually seen, this red wave did not materialise. What should have been an absolute landslide has ended up being a complete and utter failure.
And the weirdest thing about it is I keep on seeing things about, oh, Joe Biden's actually a really great president.
Yeah.
You know, well, what?
But this is the man, remember, who fell off a bicycle when
Yeah.
he stopped, and the man who called our Prime Minister, of course, Rashid Sunak.
Yes.
Right.
You know,
Well, he's also
Sunak.
Rashid
Sunak. Yeah, it was Rashid Sunak.
He's a great guy.
Well, we've been doing a thing
Yeah.
on my show called The Daily Biden, and basically we have to find a clip of him saying something and mangling it up.
Yeah.
And it's the easiest job in the world.
Is it? Yeah.
There's thousands of them
Every
out there,
day.
right?
I always think it's similar to the Soviet Union under Brezhnev. Rod is back. Send him out, pretend
Yeah.
he's alive.
He's all
Absolutely.
right.
I mean, he's completely incompetent. He's got no idea what he's talking about. He lost the door to his house, remember? Walked the wrong way, which is...
Could happen to
losing
anyone.
the door to your
It
house.
does.
Pretty expert
Typical
level.
night out for you.
Well, we had him doing that at Halloween because they had a Halloween sort of celebration at the White House, right? And when he finished doing it, he didn't know which way to go. And it's like, you live there, mate. You should know how to get back inside.
Which
you
one's pretending to be a zombie and which
It
one's
was,
Joe
yeah,
Biden?
yeah, well, I think they had raised him up out of a coffin. But, you know, the thing about what's happened this week, though, with the election in America, the midterms, is that Donald Trump's return has now been sort of put on hold, hasn't it? Or at
Yeah.
least people are now questioning whether he will, in fact, come back.
So he said that he's indicated that he's going to make a big announcement on Tuesday from Mar-a-Lago, but this was before the results came
Yeah.
in.
Backpedal.
So I wonder whether that announcement's actually going to happen. Maybe
Yeah.
he will hedge for a bit longer. The great victor is, of course, Ron DeSantis.
And,
who's
yes,
come out
exactly.
looking
And I
like
think
the
he's
future
now
of the
the
party.
party favourite.
He's
to
the
sort of
party
lead the party
darling.
next election, because I think that what we've seen now is actually the right, probably in the United Kingdom and in the US as well, the right side of politics has sort of had this awakening. You know, we can't be focusing on these really silly issues. We've got to be focusing on the economy. People's lives, you know, are really difficult. We've got the cost of living crisis, global energy crisis. When we're focusing on these really silly issues, I mean, what should have been a really easy election to win has now ended up resulting in the Republicans making such losses. Making fun of Biden really isn't that difficult. I don't know how you managed to mess it up.
What happens time and time again, I think, in Britain and in America, you've got these leaders of whether it be the Labour Party and the Democrat Party who are apologists for the creatures that now lurk within their political parties.
Yeah.
I mean, a series of really dangerous people. I mean, people who just freely believe that granny freezing over the winter is bad, kids not having enough food is bad. Kids not being able to go to school is bad, but zero net moving away from it is even worse, which I find despicable.
No, it is incredible, isn't it? But, I mean, there's still some way to go, isn't there? The Senate race is going to be counted sometime in the next month. It's a very odd system they've got.
Odd.
They're having a rerun in Georgia, apparently.
Exactly, 3 or 4 states,
where you have to go
maybe.
back and vote again.
Why can no other country do elections right? We have our election, we get the result the next day. Why can no other country do it?
You say that, but I mean, look at what we've got. We've got an unelected Prime Minister. We had one before that who was only elected by a couple of people, and then before that we had one that was elected by everybody, and he's gone.
But Mike, do you remember when, during the Bush and Gore thing, Robert Mugabe offered election monitors to US? And I thought, of all the things you've ever done, Mugabe, that was actually quite good.
He had a few spare UN types hanging about. Yeah, absolutely right. Now it's my turn for my first plank of the week, and this is going to be controversial because I'm going to name the Royal College of Nursing. The people who have called a strike, which they know will cost the lives of people in this country. And I'll tell you why they're planks, because they shouldn't be striking. They work in a business which is all about saving lives. You cannot not go to work if you're a nurse. You can't tell me on the one hand that you care about the people that you're looking after, and then on the other hand tell me that you don't care if some of them die because you didn't go to work that day because you wanted a bit more money. I find it extraordinary. And so all of this nonsense, I mean, Daily Mirror this week has absolutely surpassed itself. Earlier on in the week,
Surely not.
Earlier on in the week, they discovered Lord Lucan had been living in Australia, and then showed us a picture of what he looked like, which was pixelated. And they went, here he is, and you're going, hang on, that could be anybody. Now, today, they've got nurses apparently eating the scraps of food left behind by patients in the hospitals. I'm sure that's not true.
No.
I don't believe that nurses go around picking the custard and the crumble out of
I got into trouble this week because I said, look, I completely understand nurses work very hard, but so do other medical
Lots of people work very hard.
Exactly. And so, therefore, asking for a pay rise, I think, is absolutely the right thing. Now, the level of that pay rise is a completely different matter, and of course 17.5% or thereabouts just isn't going to happen.
Yeah.
But also, just in terms of the thing that I'm really struggling with is they say, well, emergency care will continue. But of course, what about those people who've waited for operations, who've been in pain for 2-3 years, who then have their operations cancelled? People who are waiting for chemotherapy, radiotherapy.
Right.
And actually, when you look at the whole system, my big worry about this is what it means going forward. Because actually, is this the beginning of the end? Does this mean that actually what we should be doing, and I think this is right, is actually re-looking at the entire system because it doesn't work.
We've been saying this for a long time.
NHS
But who is going to do it? Who's going to look at
People
the
have
system?
started to realise, haven't they? I mean, I never applauded the NHS simply because I think it's full of fantastic people. I think it in of itself is dreadful, and I think we're starting to learn.
And the NHS is a socialist system. Let's get that right. It's something straight out of the Soviet Union.
Well, it doesn't mean it's wrong.
does.
But I mean, if you look at 48% of the salaries go to non-clinical staff, that can't be right. You tell me a business that runs like that.
But it's not a business. That's the point. It's a government-made monopoly, and this is the issue with the NHS. This would never sail in a private system.
So you get great care and you get terrible care, and that's the problem.
Yes.
There is no sort of
Sometimes you get no care at all.
The problem is the
that's an issue, isn't
NHS in many respects is a franchise. So there are various different organs of it. So if you want to go to a specialist regional cancer unit, it's world class.
There's your answer. Put McDonald's in charge of it. They could do.
Well, that would improve the food, wouldn't it?
It really would.
Might do, actually.
I mean, it's a really good one. But if you dare to criticise the national religion, then you get into serious trouble on social media.
Yeah, I don't care about that because I think the bulk of British people actually now support my view that this is a strike, which is a strike too far.
I'm
it shouldn't
not
happen.
sure they do, actually. I don't know what the polling on this is, but there's a huge amount of public just because they don't agree with you.
No, because all the people that I spoke to today, bar one, I think, were in favour of them not going on strike and saying that all of this nonsense about
our lovely talkTV colleague.
And I know that you will say, oh, well, that's not a very wide sample of opinion, but it sort of is, because I think a lot more people are against this than you think. And I'll tell you why. Because they don't look at nurses' pay and think, that's not very much. They look at it and go, that's more than I get. Because the average pay in this country is quite low. And most people don't make what nurses make.
Oh, I don't know. Look, I think it's really difficult. There's no point in us sitting here complaining that nurses are already paid enough, because the reality is we don't have anywhere near enough nurses. So we're going to have.
But why is that?
What do you do? What do you do when you want to attract more people into the job or keep them there? You pay them more.
Or you reform what they do. So why are we
it's a vocational job, surely.
Exactly. So why do we have doing degrees? I've never understood that. We should have a degree-based one and a non-degree-based one where you learn on.
Let's move on to yours. David?
Oh,
Your
well,
second
mine.
one.
I'm sorry to be so political again, but obviously I've got to be in my bonnet. This is rudderless Rishi Sunak on the roundabout of doom.
Rashid Sunak.
Rashid Sunak. I mean, he's on the roundabout of doom. So he's going round and round this roundabout, doesn't know which exit to take, I think, at the moment.
No.
He doesn't really
Has
know.
He done a U-turn yet on the roundabout?
Exactly.
Very dangerous.
He's more like a U-boat, actually, destroying his own policies, his party, his reputation, the economy. I could go on, social cohesion. And actually, I just think he doesn't even know. I mean, I don't think he knows whether he should have a bath or a shower unless he actually gets some polling on it. And if you look at where we're going with him, in terms of he wasn't going to COP27, I think that's a great thing. Then, of course, he was going to COP27 because Boris Johnson was there.
Yeah.
So this is a man who is not a charismatic leader of this country. He's a bank manager. He's just literally a number cruncher.
But isn't the big advantage of having Rishi Sunak as Prime Minister that Rishi Sunak won't conspire against the Prime Minister? I mean, although maybe he can.
Maybe he's against himself.
Maybe he's actually sat there. He's now so strange that he's decided to conspire against his own leadership.
I think he's conspiring against his own party.
Yes,
I mean, I woke up this morning to yet another set of headlines about how those who are earning more money are going to be taxed even more. So we've gone from, OK, we're going to cut the top rate of tax from 45p to 40. Oh, no, we're not. We're going to keep it at 45. Oh, sorry, guys, actually, we're going to put it up to 50.
David Cameron invented this concept, didn't he, of being Prime Minister as a stepping stone to the big future job. You know, Nick Clegg's done it.
Yeah.
I mean, this guy effectively is British Prime Minister as a CV filler
he
before he becomes Vice President of Facebook or something like that.
I think he saw the role of Prime Minister as sort of a natural stepping stone, natural progression in his career after becoming Chancellor. But actually, I think that what we've got at the moment is a Conservative Party that isn't very Conservative at all.
Well, it's not at all Conservative.
Well, it isn't. It's got highest tax burden in 70 years. And actually what we're now seeing is that they're crushing smaller businesses. They're crushing the middle and lower income families. They were really hoping for that reduction in national insurance, really hoping for that reduction in corporation tax. And now actually the Conservative Party are crushing businesses. In my view, Rishi Sunak's economics belongs in the Labour Party.
It really does.
Absolutely. And equally, not just the households that are being crushed, but if you're looking to invest in a country, to set up a business from overseas...
Wouldn't go here.
Why the hell would you come to Britain at this point? You've no idea what the economics are doing.
No.
No,
you know,
you
one
haven't.
minute
And I honestly, I mean,
minute
next week we're going to see this budget from Jeremy Hunt, and I have no clue what's going to be in there.
I don't think
because
he does.
I don't know what they stand for anymore.
No.
And if they go for a 50% income tax
I think we'll have to
level,
leave the country.
I think we may have to
But
go
it is
and move somewhere
it's like
warm.
picking a
hopefully.
policy out with bingo balls at the moment.
Yeah.
I don't really know what's coming out of the great machine.
We don't know about the triple lock. So there's pensioners who
idea.
are sitting around today wondering how much
at
money
least
they're going to
with
have.
Liz and I know everyone was going to complain because I voted for Liz Truss in the leadership election. At least with Liz Truss, we had a direction. And I think maybe she went too hard and too fast. But actually, she had a vision for the country. She understood that people needed more of their own money in their own pockets. She understood the damage the government did to small businesses and to the economy as a whole. Yeah. She understood the importance of growth. And actually, I wish we had someone like her with that same vision.
Do you think she was stitched up? Because a lot of people do think that.
Look, I think
I
personally agree with her agenda. I think it's the only hope for this country to reposition us as a lower tax, smaller state economy. And I think the absolute tragedy is that she executed it so badly that we haven't just reverted to where we were. We're now lurching further to the left. And I think it's a disaster.
But what amazes me is the way that people just follow the polls. I mean, the polls are helpful. They tell you what people think at a set time. But there's also something called leadership, which says, OK, the polls don't agree with me on this, but I'm going to go out and sell a message on something. This painting by numbers thing is pathetic.
There's nobody in the real world who sits around wondering about economic policy and what it should be and what Downing Street should be telling them. All they know is they want somebody to fix it and they want to be able to go into their local shop and afford to buy the avocados that they want to buy.
They're not going to buy avocados.
Well, I know.
You buy avocados.
I don't actually buy them very often, but I do eat them.
Crushed avocado and smoked salmon.
No, I make guacamole with them, actually. But I mean, why wouldn't you?
That's mushy peas.
That's what it's made of. No, these northerners, I don't know. I don't get a northerner on the show. It's not normally allowed. But, you know, but nobody understands it. They don't care what the economic policy really is, as long as they've got money to spend and they can get themselves away for a holiday once in a while and they can get their kids' clothes made and they can actually, you know, have enough money to pay for their electricity.
But
that's all
why
they care
he's
about.
Not a charismatic leader. So the thing is, he should be setting the agenda where we're going and how we're going to get there.
And he was hopeless at PMQs this week, wasn't he?
Yeah, but
really
he's
bad.
a robot, isn't he? It's like a Thunderbird.
I think someone forgot to put his batteries in on his last speech.
No, he looks like Roland Rat.
Yeah, I mean, he's not the most charismatic
Actually,
figure.
Roland Rat was fairly charismatic.
Yeah, but I mean, he obviously thinks he's charismatic. There was that great picture of him on the Telegraph front page this week where he's emerging from the plane and he's made sure they've taken the picture from below, so he looks like this sort of hulking brute
Because he's
coming
incredibly
out.
short.
But apparently people said Emmanuel Macron was very happy to meet him because it's the first time he's met a world leader who's actually shorter than him.
That was like...
This was brilliant.
But
you
that
know.
was
Also, I mean, we're talking about ethnic minority representation. This is short men representation
Yeah.
that we've got with this Prime
There's a lot
Minister.
of short men in charge of lots of countries, actually.
Yeah.
There was a piece
It
done
looked like
in the Telegraph
the
other day.
Macron SUNAK thing looked like they were going home together, didn't they? I mean, I couldn't.
You thought they were going to kiss, didn't they? That photo of them together, they looked like they were about to kiss.
Yeah, well, let's hope that doesn't
I mean,
happen.
let's hope that never
I mean, I've heard of
that
Channel
would be
Migrant
filth.
Acts, but I don't think that one's going to be necessary at all. Coming up next, we'll be nominating yet another politician, this time someone who's just been sacked. Welcome back to Plank of the Week. So far, so good. We've got so many, though. I don't know who I'm going to decide on, but we'll do that coming up later on in the show. Right now, it's time for Isabel Oakeshott's next nomination. Isabel.
So my next nomination is the boss of the retailer Next,
Yes.
Lord Wolfson. And Lord Wolfson has been whining
Has he?
that Brexit hasn't worked out quite as he envisaged. And what's the reason for this? He can't get the staff anymore. Now, poor Lord Wolfson doesn't seem to be able to fill the vacancies in his company. I had a little look to see about the jobs available at Next. And you know what's interesting? They're offering jobs at £6.89 an hour. So kind of go figure. This is nothing to do with Brexit, my friend. This is the fact that you're trying to pay people the absolute minimum.
How is he even able to
job.
pay that little?
So
I started off on £6.35 an hour when I was 16.
that is the minimum
When
wage
you're under
for
18,
16
yeah.
to 18.
Right.
So these jobs go up to the princely sum of £9.50,
Yeah.
which is for the grown-ups who need more money.
We should reduce the... That's
So-
the notes
so
of my
look-
producer. They just reduce the fees here today.
I mean,
because
this is-
obviously get away with it.
Absolutely ridiculous on the part of Lord Wolfson. We don't need more immigration. And he was, by the way, a Brexiteer,
Yeah.
which is why it's particularly disappointing to hear this. The fact of the matter is there are 5 million people in the UK who are on out-of-work benefits who could be doing jobs. In Next, some of them could
Yeah.
be. 1 in 8 people of working age are on out-of-work benefits, which is unbelievable.
Yeah.
And in terms of sheer numbers, we now have 10 million more people in this country than we did 20 years ago. And the reality is that our infrastructure can't take it.
Do you know-
We see this all around
I've got
I
to
understand
say,
that.
Do you know what really upsets me? You see these coffee shops opening and people get these minimum wage payment. I call it slavery payments. Bring them over from the Eastern Europe.
Oh, it's not
let them get paid that amount. But look, then my local council has to pay them housing benefits. Then we have to discount them from the council tax. Then we have to pay them in-work benefit. The reason your pumpkin latte is £4 is because it cost me £4 in tax to subsidise the work.
No, it is absolutely...
It's great.
No, I mean, I've always...
I do kind of understand why he wants more immigration, because the issue is
Right.
our benefit system is broken. These people are incentivised to stay on benefits rather than work. Actually,
Well, the answer
I don't
isn't
blame
to
him.
bring more
No,
people
Maybe the
in,
answer
is
is to
it?
reform the benefit system.
And remember, he was a very, very passionate Brexiteer. The whole point was about smart immigration, just saying that actually we need to make sure we have highly skilled people coming into this country. Isabel makes a great point about those people who aren't working. They should be working, and why aren't they working? We need to look at the
Yes.
social reasons for them not working.
But also, hang on a minute. We also learned this week, did we not, that there's something like £8.5 billion has been paid out to fraudulent claimants.
Oh, that annoyed me
right?
so much. And they're
£8.5
not even
billion.
trying to get it
This is
back
in 1
again.
year, right?
Well-
since the pandemic, it's apparently got worse. And the answer from the people who investigate the benefits fraud says, it's just that people have got more of a propensity to commit fraud. You go, sorry, this is your job. Your job is to find fraudsters
And reclaim the money.
prosecute them and get the money back.
Yeah.
Instead, he's going, well, there's just more people that want to do it.
But the same was true of bounce back loans, remember? All
Yeah,
those companies
that
that
all went
started up,
south.
and of course they
Yeah.
took all those billions of pounds. And
Yeah.
of course, when you actually ask the people enforcing it, what are you going to do about
Yeah.
it? Oh, we're just going to write
We're
it
not
off.
going to bother
But
chasing them.
maybe there's something more fundamental. I mean, you know that I'm well into the Indian restaurant business.
Yes.
But here's what they've said. They've turned around and said, we need to go the way the Swiss are going. The problem you've got is when you bring over somebody to the country to work, immediately they get a work visa, obviously. Then they get the right of residence. Then they get the citizenship. That gives them the right to bring their entire family. So if you want to bring somebody over to be a waiter in a restaurant, actually you're bringing 8 members of their family over at the same time.
Yeah.
All you have to do is what the Swiss do, which is you work here, you pay the tax. If you don't work here, you go home.
Yeah,
That's
I
it.
think
But
that's
that's,
great.
but that's what they do in a lot of other countries as well. They do the same in Dubai. If you're out there working for a British company and you get the heave-ho, you don't get to stay there.
you can't
you come back. But if we did that, can you imagine the howling from people like
You know
Lord
what?
Wolf? You see what I did there?
I don't think the government has the right to tell businesses where they can and can't get their employees from. I think if the business wants to... I mean, I don't blame them. These business owners are having to face this labour shortage. Actually, the solution would be to get British workers working. If they don't want to work, of course they're going to want to employ migrants.
Yeah, but surely the point of Brexit...
intervention.
No, but the point of Brexit in the first place was to raise the level of pay for people in this country because the cheap foreign labour was undercutting it, right? So we shouldn't be importing cheap foreign labour.
You say you don't blame them, but I mean, I 100% do blame them. Next profits are booming. They got 400 million pre-tax
Well, they just bought
profits in the
Maid,
last
didn't
6
they,
Why is
as
profit a
well?
bad
Yeah, they've
thing?
got plenty. No, of course profit's not a bad thing, but it is a bad thing when you're complaining that you can't get the workers. So you want to import them and make the rest of us pay for you to subsidise
Well,
their
that's the
wages.
issue, is the benefit system, because people are not incentivised to work. Instead, they're actually incentivised to stay on benefits.
But Reem,
I think that's the issue.
I think where you've got this wrong, I think fundamentally, I think you're right. The reason you've got it wrong is this effectively market intervention by saying when you come over here to work, you will get a British passport as a result of that job.
Yeah.
That's the reason why it creates a problem. If all you did was came over, worked, and then went home after you were finished, it wouldn't make any difference at all.
Now, this is at the point at which I have to tell you, I'll give you all a warning, because it's getting too serious, this show. This is not supposed to be an economics lesson, for God's sake.
It's her fault.
Right? So why don't you give us your next one, Andre?
My next one is one of the most boring people in history. Even looks like Data off Star Trek. Mark Zuckerberg. You know what? You saw Elon Musk come into Twitter and sort of stir things up. And poor old Zuckerberg, who's lost a
look at
fortune,
that picture.
has decided to fire a load of people. He even issued this video showing his new, you know, that metaverse that looks like the most lame thing in the world.
But he looks like one of those characters in it, doesn't he? His actual face is like something that a computer has generated, right?
But he made that video, and apparently his system doesn't allow you to have legs in the metaverse, and therefore they have to make a fake video of him with the legs on. He's like Wordy from the 80s.
Yes.
It's just absolutely...
That is very weird.
I mean,
So what's he in it for this time?
well, the reason he's in it is because he's tried now to save the metaverse by sacking a load of people, a la Elon Musk. I genuinely think that what he did was he came across an idea, apparently by himself, where you know, you can post photos of you and your mates and tag them so you know who each other are at university. And it got popular, right? But let's not over-egg the pudding. He's not going to change the world. He's not going to create, Thursday will be done in the metaverse in the future. No, it won't.
So he's actually invented a world by killing off the
he's-
real
but
world.
he's also-
And he's basically
But
got
Mike,
sacked loads of
Mike,
people.
he's invented a world that he spent $100 billion on, and 300 people use it. I mean, it's as popular as a poo in the swimming pool.
I think he's a bit jealous of Elon Musk now with all of his glory with Twitter. And he's like, you know what, I'm going to try and do something to change the world.
Yeah.
Well, actually,
He has
Elon
fallen
Musk,
back.
Elon Musk is cool. Zuckerberg is not.
Well, Musk has just ordered all of his employees to come back to the
into the
office, which I think is
office.
the greatest piece of news anybody has ever said this year alone.
I thought that was very interesting from him because obviously he is the king of cool, isn't he?
Yeah.
He's the one that allegedly was smoking weed on that.
I still
interview,
don't understand why lefties don't like him. I don't understand what he's done wrong. I mean, he doesn't appear
Well, they
to
don't
be.
like free speech.
Oh, is that what it is?
We were on. But hang on a second. We were on the Russell Howard show over that, weren't we?
Yeah, we were. I think,
When I suggested that people were working from bed, and the two of us got criticised.
Well, we get everywhere. People are always using clips of our shows nowadays. But I mean, the thing is, you know, he's fallen, as you say, way behind because you've got Jeff Bezos with his amazing clock in the desert, which is worth about 40 million quid, but nobody ever sees it. So you don't care what time it is because you can't look at it. And then, and of course, he's also going up into space every 5 minutes. And Zuckerberg's kind of not really doing much of anything.
Zuckerberg's like the kid who owns the football.
Yeah.
You know, like you go, oh, you have to play with him because he owns
Yeah.
the football.
Do you remember
I know
him? Yeah.
Nobody likes him.
No.
But you have to. And I mean, he's not cool. He's not fun.
Also,
His
even
metaverse
Facebook
sounds boring.
And Facebook now has fallen way behind, hasn't it? TikTok
Yeah.
and various other things.
But
which
apparently it's very uncool to use Facebook. You have to be of a certain
It's what
age.
your parents
my
use.
age.
Yeah.
Yeah, your parents use it. But the cool kids don't use Facebook at all. So is he reinventing enough? I'm not sure Musk actually is in great steads at the moment. You know, certainly laying off people. I think all of them are in in trouble, actually. Maybe they sold the dream and the dream then evaporated a little bit.
I think what they've
But where
done
do all
is
these people go?
They've come up with a new thing, haven't they? I mean, Friends Reunited was one of those things, and then he made a better Friends Reunited.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I'm telling you, I'm not going to be dancing with Isabel in the metaverse pretending to have a drink. I'm going to go.
She would have said
She's
no.
I thought you were going to say how relieved you were.
telling you, I'm
But you
just
can't dance if you haven't got any legs, can you?
That's right. Well, I don't know. I don't know.
Do some floating.
But I mean, it's a charter for sad individuals, isn't it? That's why nobody does it.
Yeah, it really is.
I can imagine some incels sort of just going at home and trying to meet different people because they can change their face, right?
Do you want to know my age, sex and location?
What's your
Not really.
pronoun?
No, why don't you tell the police?
That's right.
Reem, you've got the next one.
I do, yes. So I'm nominating the University and College Union because yet again we're faced with another set of strikes at the end of
Amazing.
November. I mean, it's just awful. I think they're saying now it's about 70,000 members of staff who are now going to be going on strike at the end of this month. About 2.5 million students like myself are going to be affected by this. It's ridiculous. You've got all of these different professors on their nice cushy jobs, and a lot of them are working from home, not even turning up at university, and they're still complaining.
What are they complaining about?
The working environment.
They've said, I think they had a strike
really
not that long ago.
Yeah.
It feels like it's only just finished.
Strikes
And they
all the
said,
time.
they actually used these words,
Yeah.
that the working conditions were unbearable.
What, in the ivory tower?
In the lecture theatre. I mean, it's like sitting here and saying the conditions are unbearable. Look at these lights.
So bad.
It's
They're
horrible.
on these incredibly high wages. They've got incredible job security.
they
Staff
give, like, jobs for
turnover
life kind of
staff
thing, isn't
turnover in
it?
universities.
Mind you, they'll
is
soon get kicked out of the
incredibly
job
low.
if they start defining what a woman is, won't they?
I'm sure they would be if they start
No
going
job
down.
security then.
Yeah, if they start defining what a woman is, they'll definitely be fired for that. But I think it's just an incredible issue. I mean, someone like me, I graduate next year. My first year of university was characterised by 2 different lockdowns.
Awful.
Second year of university was characterised by entire amounts of strikes after strikes. I had a whole week where I had no classes because all of my teachers were on strike. And now this year we've got it again. I mean, I graduate next year. My university
Have
experience
you
is
actually been in a
ruined.
lecture hall? Have you ever been in
I've
one?
been in a lecture hall about 3 times this year, Mike.
I was talking to a lecturer from the University of, a university in the West Country, let's just say. And I said to him, well, can we meet up for a drink? And he said, yeah, because I live in London. He said, I only go down there once a week. And you think, you are a university lecturer at that university.
Can't you
And he said,
invoice
well,
Reem and get a refund?
I wish I could, but they don't, because of the way the contract works, we can't. But I think what's awful about this is that, we're all suffering under this cost of living crisis. These professors and teachers and staff, they are not the people that are bearing the brunt of the crisis.
That's right.
They are not bearing the brunt of it. They are not suffering as much as everybody else is. And actually, I think that what they need to do is stop being so incredibly selfish.
Yeah.
Amen.
Well, fundamentally as well,
so.
they're not actually doing their job, are they? I mean, if you're not going in front of a load of people to lecture them, you're not a lecturer. How can you be in a lecturer's union if all you're doing is talking to a load of people on a computer screen?
Yeah.
It's not lecturing, is
I mean,
it?
I think what has happened to your intake of students is absolutely deplorable. It is disgraceful that COVID was used over such a protracted period to deny you what you were paying for.
Remember all
and
those
you were
students-
completely locked into it, and you had to pay for your accommodation that you were either locked into or weren't allowed to be at. Unbelievable.
Yeah, I remember when they locked all those students in
That
the
was just
halls of
University
residence,
of
and they were like
Manchester. They
passing
actually put
food to them.
gates.
And
They actually put
and they
gates
locked them
around-
in.
And you wonder
accommodation.
why they come out without social skills and we're feeling socially isolated. I think actually what we did, and Isabel's right, is appalling actually in the way we treated students. They should write off all your fees.
Yeah, I think that's a very good idea. It's never going to happen, though, unfortunately. Coming up next, we're going to be nominating somebody who's famous for eating a bacon sandwich. I think you know. Absolutely. Welcome back to Plank of the Week. We are nearly in the final furlong, and now we get to nominate the final nomination, which is one of mine. And it is, of course, a man who, as we said before, couldn't manage to find his way through a bacon sandwich without making himself look completely and utterly ridiculous. It is, of course, the one and only Ed Miliband, as I like to call him, otherwise known as Ed MILIBAND. I had the misfortune of putting on the Laura Kunsberg show on Sunday because I like to catch up with what's going on. And he was being interviewed about reparations for the climate. And he was very careful not to use the word reparations, but everybody else did, because that was clearly what he was going on about. And he was banging it on and on and on. And it got, we were talking about RISHI SUNAK earlier, he then sort of went, oh, this is quite a good idea. Let's go and introduce it to COP27. And so apparently, because of the Industrial Revolution, where we sort of led the world in inventing things and making the world a better place to live and making people live longer and all of those kind of really unhelpful things. Apparently, we should be guilty for doing that and saving people's lives and giving them civilised things that they could eat and civilised things.
Infrastructure and
railways, buildings, that kind of thing. You know, apparently that was all wrong. And we should now be very, very sorry. And we should be paying vast amounts of money, of our money, by the way, taxpayers' money, we should be paying it to places like India and China, even though they're now polluting the world much worse
It's all about regression, isn't it? I mean, if you look at Greta Thunberg, £4.5 million yacht, she flies out the captain on BA first class, flies him back, you know, obviously worried about the carbon footprint.
Of course.
But then she sits there and she says something that I think is genuinely despicable. She turns around and she says we need to end the myth that we can have permanent economic growth. Well, you tell that to a Sierra Leonean subsistence farmer. You know, these people actually are perfectly happy to live. Ed Miliband, lest we forget, has 2 kitchens in his house. He does. By the way.
Well remembered.
And also, he also have a nanny as well, doesn't he?
He also, to be fair to him, he ate a bacon sandwich more effectively than most Jewish people I know. But anyway, he... I just think these people are giant hypocrites.
Well, of course they are.
We've lifted 1 billion people out of poverty in the last 20 years. We're going to lift another 1 billion people out of poverty if we don't let them get away with it.
Life expectancy in parts of the world that used to have terrible life expectancy has improved by some massive amount, like sort of 30 years in China alone, I think. And so the idea that we have to be guilty for something that happened so long ago is not only actually ridiculous, but it's wrong, because according to the people that we talk to now about climate, most of the emissions which are causing the problems now have happened in the last 10 years, not in the 18th century or the, you know...
And we've reduced emissions more...
And our emissions now have been reduced by a massive amount, so they should be actually paying us.
If you look at the graph, the way the UK has performed, we've actually done better than most other countries. So,
exactly.
So in fact,
and also, my issue is, where are these reparations going to be going? We know that these countries have a really bad track record with spending money. And, you know, we're essentially giving money to these authoritarian regimes. We know where the money's going to go. It's going to go to line their own pockets.
What has happened with every single society that is industrialised is there is a period of pollution and then there is a period of improving the environment. And so the reality is, the problem with Ed Miliband is he doesn't want developing countries to be able to develop. He wants us to destroy our society in order to pay for it. Look, all that's going to happen is they'll build all these coal-fired power stations, keep them for 20, 30 years, and then start moving to greener technology if we lead the way on things like nuclear. But that's not the plan.
Maybe when Greta Thunberg's generation gets as old as we are, they'll see sense and just go, you know what? That was just all rubbish.
That's my generation.
By when Greta Thunberg gets your age, she'll still be pretending to be 12.
Now, listen, this is what we're looking for. This is now the time when I give you my verdict on who should be Plank of the Week. Now, obviously, Matt Hancock is very much up in the winner's circle, but I don't think we're going to give it to him, because I think Isabel may have a point about Matt Hancock, and I think he might turn out to have the last laugh on everybody, and he might come out of this looking a lot more sensible, actually, than anybody else. So who knows? But we can always do him next week. Mark Zuckerberg's a very good one as well. But do you know what I'm going to do? And this is not because it's my nomination. I'm going to go with Ed Miliband, because Ed Miliband has pulled us all the way back to the Industrial Revolution and managed to try and make everybody think that it wasn't the greatest thing that ever happened to this country. Absolutely ridiculous. So listen, I'm going to say thank you to all of you. Ed Miliband, you are the Plank of the Week. Well done. David Bull, Reem Ibrahim, Isabel Oakeshott, Andre Walker, thank you very much indeed. We'll see you next week.